Alright, welcome back to Dino World. Today we're going to be talking about what Dino World is, and honestly, this is a question that I got from the comment section. I'll link the person who commented it down in the description below, but they asked what Dino World was. So when I do my Dinopedia playlist, I say my new game Dino World. So what is Dino World? So I wanted to describe what Dino World is in this video and explain what my future plans for the project are. I know I haven't made a video in quite a while yet on Dinopedia or Pokepedia, but been in a little bit of a rut lately and just wanted to get some things done in my life, but come back to making videos. And my videos are going to be more pointed on making Dino World updates, as far as filling you guys in on what the game plan is, and also making updates in general for the dinosaurs, items, and also asking you guys if you have any other ideas. So the schedule for this video is simple. We're going to be looking at the basic concept of Dino World, looking at the board game, which is the current game that's being made. I'll explain why I can't make the video game at the moment. I wanted to make the video game. I actually started trying to make the video game, but ran into some problems early on. So I went back to making the board game, which was the original game, but I wanted to make a real game. I'll talk about it all in just a second, but also potential updates in future projects, such as making the video game if the board game does well. So the base concept was going to be an Ark Survival game. When Ark Survival came out, originally I wanted to make a board game because I was like, oh, the video game exists, maybe I can submit like a resume to Wildcard to make a board game version of their game. And that was basically what the game was going to be like. It was going to have similar game mechanics, more unique materials, reworking every dino to be more useful, aka the Brontosaurus, Galli, and Sarcos. Basically dinosaurs that have like no purpose in the game right now. Brontos, Titanosaurs are more useful. Gallies, no one really tames them that much. And Sarcos have been made useless by the Caprasuchus and Deinosuchus. The game also would have efficient downloads. So originally when I made the board game concept, I was like, frick this, I want to be a game developer and make actual video games. So I was like, okay, so Ark Survival is a good game, but it's like 150 gigabytes right now. So it is a huge game. So I wanted to make it a much smaller data size. When the Ark mobile game came out, PixArk, which is basically the Pixel Gun 3D version of Ark Survival, the game size was like 15 to 20 gigabytes. So I was like, okay, if they can make this for a mobile game, if I can make a game size similar that's around 15 to 25 gigabytes for a mobile game, and then make it a little bit bigger for the actual game, then I can make an Ark Survival game that's easier to download, more efficient to download, and doesn't take up half your space on your Xbox. And of course, it would have diverse gameplay. It would have multi-world updates, similar to when Scorched Earth and Aberration came out for Ark Survival. It'd have an achievement system similar to Minecraft, where it'd be like, oh, you made bread, oh, you cooked steak, oh, you killed a Spinosaurus, this is your achievement. So you get achievement system similar to Minecraft. There's also skill leveling, similar to the 7 Days to Die game mode, where you can level stuff like your strength, your pack meal so you can carry more, your cooking so you can cook more efficiently, your hunting so you can hunt more efficiently, your looting so you can loot more efficiently, skills like that. You can have skill trees and stuff like that in later game updates. Also world difficulty. This is a thing that has been carried over in Ark Survival Ascended, where there's an easy, medium, and hard difficulty. But I wanted to make it a little bit more better with having a easy, medium, hardcore, and then a nightmare and insanity mode, with nightmare having in-game events similar to the Hunger Games franchise, where every hour has a different effect over the map, and insanity, which has different dino variants, which would make it even harder to tame certain dinos. So of course I wanted to make the video game, and I started making the video game, but I ran into some problems. First of all, it restricted the development of the game because, number one, I can't code. So coding skills, I tried looking up so many different like 5 to 6 hour tutorials on how to code dinosaur AI. I could not make the dinosaur even walk 5 feet without bugging out, stopping, dying, or just like the walk cycle looked weird, like it would use its arms to walk instead of its legs. So I cannot code very well besides making websites. I used to make websites back in the day for money, and I still do if you're interested. That's just a little side plug. I did get a coding certificate from my university, but that did not train me well at all. The only coding language I know how to use is JavaScript and Java. I can also use Python, but my main coding languages are still HTML and JavaScript. HTML is for websites, and JavaScript is for making mobile games. And of course, that leads me to the next one, money problem, unable to purchase game assets. So the dinosaurs I was making, I just made the models myself in pixel art and then just transformed them and tried to draw them myself in Blender. Did not go well. My dinosaurs looked like nightmare animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's, and they did not look scary in the least. They looked like cute versions of the nightmare animatronics, and their white walk cycles, for example, looked like their arms were the ones walking while their legs were like their arms. You can try and imagine what that looks like, but I wouldn't. So I was unable to purchase very good game assets to make the game even look good. I'm a college student, so I have to pay for college tuition and rent payments as well, so didn't have enough money to actually purchase real game assets. So even though my game already looked garbage because of the garbage coding and I was learning off of tutorials, the game assets made the game literally look like hot trash. And then the art problem. I have primitive art at best, as I just described. My dinosaurs just look like animatronics that you'd see at Universal, and the 3D models looked like nightmare animatronics that did not look scary at all. And of course, I would have to buy a lot of commissions from good artists, which requires a large-scale commission effort, which gets back into the second problem, which is don't have a lot of money. So Dino World is now going to probably be a board game and a card game. Those are the two cheapest options that I have available. Still have to make custom boards and custom cards, but I am going to try probably once the game concept is done testing. I'm testing it with my family and my friends and some other people I met online that actually board game tests and card game tests for a living. I'm doing a lot of testing with a lot of people, so I'm hopefully going to be able to get the card game and board game into Kickstarter mode and asking for a loan payment from the bank to actually make it a reality. I'll let you guys know if that ever happens, but right now we're just testing the alpha and beta versions of both games. So there's a card game and a board game in development. So the card game, the basic idea is every player will face off against a Dino Deck, in which you will just pull out 3 to 5 dinos from a deck of cards. Players will use cards and weapons in their hand that they've drawn from the item and player deck to defeat these dinos. The goal is simple: defeat the dinos, gain loot cards, and prepare yourself for the final fight, which is a boss fight against 3 random bosses from the boss deck. So there's 3 decks of cards: a dino deck, player deck, and boss deck, and then some simple instructions, and it's similar to Phase 10. So in Phase 10, as you don't know, you have levels and you have to get through each phase in order to get to Phase 10, and if you complete Phase 10, you win the game. Players will have levels to denote their attack multiplier. This will help them survive better during the round, as if you're going off against a copy with a spear, you may do a good job, but if you have an assault rifle and you're up against a Spinosaurus, you may want a attack multiplier. Players gain levels by surviving hands, but players who die during hands will lose levels. So you lose a level if you die, and you gain a level if you survive. Of course, the card game also has a Mahjong reference. If you've never played Mahjong, there's basically tablets that you have to get, and you have to collect these tablets to make patterns, and patterns denote how you will win the game. So the Mahjong reference is combinations. Players can play item cards in a combination to boost their attacks or use secondary actions. Similar to Mahjong, you collect similar combinations to win the game. Also, boss battle. The final draw uses the boss deck, drawing 3 bosses from the deck of 10 cards, meaning it's hard to get the same 3 bosses for each draw, making the boss fight kind of unique because you don't know which 3 bosses you may get. So players have to prepare for whatever boss they draw, unlike the board game, which the boss fight is set. We're about to talk about the board game because the board game is actually the one that I'm most excited about. But that is the card game. Moving on to the board game. So when I've made Dinopedia updates, Dinopedia videos, and you've probably watched them, a couple of them, I say my new game, Dino World. So this is the board game this is the game that I'm actually talking about when I talk about Dinopedia. Now, when I originally meant the video game, but as you know, I spent about 3 to 4 months trying to make that game, and I couldn't even get past a velociraptor walking in a straight line without either dying or just bugging through the map. So, of course, I'm going to the board game now, and when I make Dinopedia updates in the future, I'll talk about what the board game dinosaur may look like. So the board game draws off of many different board games and references. First of all, the board itself is Settlers of Catan-like. Each region represents a biome and are numbered similar to the Catan board as seen here. Different regions, they won't look like the Catan board, but it'll be similar. So think about a map of Europe where Germany is 8, the UK is 4. If you roll an 8, you can go to Germany, or if you roll a 4, you go to the UK. Similar to the Catan board, if you roll a 9, you can either go to here, but you can also go to this biome as well, or this one. So you can choose whatever biome you want to go to based on which roll of the dice you make. So you roll 2 dice and you go to that region that you like. Similar for this game, there's biomes: redwood, plains, jungle, swamp, volcanic, snowy mountains, etc. You roll the dice and you can go to one of the biomes that you can go. Like, let's say there's a swamp biome that's 1. There's a swamp biome that's 6 and a mountain biome that's 8. If you roll an 8, you can go to the mountain biome. If you roll a 6, you go to the swamp biome. That's how you determine where you go. It's a 3 to 6 player game. There's 2 sides: survivals versus the wildebeest. The wildebeest is the one that controls the creatures. So similar to a D&D DM, Dungeon Master, the wildebeest basically determines how fights will look, and the survivors are just trying to survive these fights. Players will roll dice to determine what regions to travel to. We already talked about that. And players will get resources by going to certain regions. So example, if you go to the snowy mountains, you'll get metal and stone. If you go to the swamp biome, you'll get oil and wood. Now, of course, it is very much based off of the Ark Survival game. This is what the original board game was going to be based off of. Basically just an Ark Survival board game that I was going to try and be like, hey, pitch it to Wildcard, but apparently they've already came out with their card game, so my board game idea is pretty much useless to them. So of course there'd be biome-specific creature spawns. If you go to the swamp biome, you'll get baryonyx, sarcos, piranhas, or a spinosaurus. But if you go to the volcanic biome, you get an allosaurus, mantis, anthropleura, megalania, or a T-Rex. Of course, there's player versus creature combat, so the wildebeest controls the creatures while the players control their own destiny. There's a boss fight at the end. Players will have to go through different creature combats before they venture into the caves, and the caves will have the 3 bosses they need to defeat to win. And of course, there's player leveling. Player leveling was meant as a way to balance this. So originally, when we had the alpha version of the board game, the creatures would win every fight no matter what, because the creatures would just be way overpowered. If you rolled, for example, a 4 and got a medium level difficulty, the person could just spawn a Carnotaurus into the game, and the players would lose because all they'd have is spears and fists. So they couldn't really do anything, and the Carnotaurus would just win. And they can't outrun a Carnotaurus, so they couldn't even outrun it if they tried. So player leveling was made so that if the player is level 1, the DM, in this sense, the wildebeest, can't just spawn a T-Rex on them. They have to spawn level 1 creatures. So there's level 1 through 3 creatures, with 3s being like Gigas and Rexes, and number 2s being Carnos and Hyena Dogs and Dire Wolves, and number 1s being Compies, Piranhas, and Limantras. So there's different levels just to make the player's life a little bit easier. The board game also has Minecraft references. There's armor sets, leather armor and metal armor. There's loot drops from creatures, hide and meat, which hide can be used to make armor. Eating heals players. You can heal by the 2 means of food, which is wild berries and meat at the moment. Remember, this game is in beta, so there will be much more things to eat as the game develops, but right now there's only 2 sources of food, which is wild berries, which are similar to narco berries and tinta berries, which can also be used to make trank darts for taming for later updates, and meat, which of course drops from creatures. Eating heals the players during battle. There's craftable items like spears, bows, assault rifles, and cannons. And creature behavior, passive, neutral, or aggressive. If you go up against a passive creature, the player will always go first if it initiates combat. Neutral, passive and neutral means the player can ignore them, go after the aggressive creatures first, which will always attack first. So the player can always go after the aggressive creatures and then go after the passive creatures, meaning that players can deal with the more aggressive creatures first, and then once they're done killing them in a battle, they can go after the neutral and passive. If you go up against a neutral creature, you have to initiate a fight, meaning you actually target it with your weapon, and then you roll to see who goes first. And aggressive creatures, you have to roll to see who goes first regardless, because they will attack you as soon as the fight begins. And then D&D reference, the wildebeest kind of acts like a DM because it controls the creatures. You can deploy structures and turrets like the artificial role class in Dungeons and Dragons. You roll for initiative, which bases the turn order, and there's turn-based combat. So it's basically a combination of Settlers Catan, Minecraft, Ark Survival, and D&D. So of course the version project right now, the base version has already been tested. There was no player leveling, no creature limits, and players had 0% chance of winning because they could just spawn the wildebeest. If you rolled a medium difficulty, could literally spawn in 2 Carnotauruses, and the players would have no chance in hell, which is spears and their fists. So the alpha version has included now player leveling. This is the current version that's being tested. There's creature spawn limitations. You cannot spawn 2 Gigas, you can only spawn 1. You can spawn up to 3 Allosauruses, just like the game, but you cannot spawn more than 2 Rexes. There's armor and turrets now, making it more easy for the player to get better weapons to deal with stuff like the Gigas. Specialty items such as trank darts, which you can knock out dinosaurs so you can escape, nets to trap smaller creatures, and flare guns to ward away big predators like Rexes and Gigas. And there's also helpful loot drops like leather, which can be used to make leather armor, and meat, which you can eat to heal. Of course, the beta version will be the final version before the board game is actually released into the main version. This beta version will add 3 new things into the game. Creature taming, so you can use trank darts not just to knock out creatures, but also tame them instead of fighting them. So during a fight, if you kill everything else in the fight but leave the Rex to itself, you can try and knock out the Rex and tame it so it can be on your side for future battles. There'll also be base building, so you can build up a base with turrets and cannons, so that you can have base raids, which are when dinosaurs will raid your base. And also there will also be an added resource. So in the base version, there was 8 resources. In the alpha version, to make armor sets, we added hide, which is basically leather, which is how you make leather armor, to make 9 resources. And then there will be 10 resources in the next game, which will be adding crystal so you can make glass items. And then the main version, which will be the final tested version and will be the final board game that will be released with a Kickstarter and a loan program to make it an actual game you can find in bookstores and grocery stores like Walmart. Creature mating and breeding, so you can breed and mate tamed creatures. Mate and pack bonuses, alpha creatures, so there'll be packs of creatures, like when we said that you could spawn 3 Allosauruses with the wildebeest. If the wildebeest spawns in 3 Allosauruses, one of them will be an alpha Allosaurus. There's multi-attack creatures, similar to how the Spino can attack from either standing up or being on its all 4 legs. And there will be creature passive and abilities, basically making creatures more customizable. So of course, the Dino World version progress right now, obviously when we get past the main game, there will be variant versions. There will be new maps, so basically different game boards you can use, new biomes. There's card packs you can get, where you can get new creatures, new bosses. There's disease cards that will be added in the future. Environmental cycles, disaster event cards, and event cards in general like tsunamis, floods, and earthquakes, and new items like new weapons, arc engrams like spyglasses or cooking pots to make things more like actually a Dino World game. Future projects, obviously when enough revenue is generated from the board game and card game projects, we'll make a website for ordering board games and variant map boards, card packs, and information on how the game is played if you have a computer but you don't have and you want to play it online with Tabletop Simulator or Roll20, where you can just play games online instead of just playing it in the physical world. And then there will also be a video game project. This is the final project and the project that we are trying to build to, which is the Dino World video game, which was the original concept all the way back when Ark Survival first released, and the board game idea came to life, also became the video game project. Worked on it for 3 to 4 months, couldn't get anything started, but if I get enough revenue from the board game and card game and the website going live, then I'll make a video game that'll basically allow me to hire people to code the game, make social media accounts for community updates and progression, hire artists so they can actually make stuff, designers, and actually get a video game project going. And then of course there will be mods and credit rewards. And that brings me to what will be happening on this channel for the next few months. So I'll be looking at Ark Survival Ascended mods and be talking about modded creatures and modded items that may make their way into the Dino World board game and video game. And I'll talk about how mods will work in Dino World. Basically, mods will be paid, but they'll also be mostly free for people to add to their games. The payment will come from credit. So basically how Minecraft works is that if a person uses your mod, CurseForge will give you credit. And I wanted to do it similar to that, where I wanted to make it so it's mod friendly but also player friendly. Players do not have like $500 to pay for $500 to add 50 mods to their game. No one has enough money to add all the Ark mods that currently exist. I'm sorry to say this wild card, but there's no one who's going to buy 500 mods and spend $5,000 on your game. No one is going to do that unless they want to be a prick. So my example for how modding should work in the future is simple. If a player downloads your mod and uses it for an amount of time, then you get $5 for your mod. For every player who's ever downloaded your mod, if they play it for that amount of time, you get $5. Let's say they keep your mod long term and use it for like a video series, then it gets like $25, $50. So basically the modder gets paid every time a player spends an amount of time using their mod in game. So basically it's credit based revenue. Every time that's just to make so that the mods are free, because I think it'd be much better for the modder in general if it was like free, because players will be more interested in using your mod if it's free. We don't have to make the player spend $5,000 in the game if it's free. There's still cosmetics and stuff they can add that cost money. And if the player uses your mod for an amount of time, you'll get an amount of money. Money can be set, we can negotiate. I would just say that it's better to negotiate with the mod maker, but we're not going to give you, like, if the player spends 5 minutes playing your mod, and we're not just going to give you $500. We're going to give you like probably like 5 cents. Maybe like every minute is like a cent, but like if you get to the milestone of like 30 minutes playing your mod, then it goes from like 30 cents to like $30. I don't know, we'll think about it. I think that it's good to pay the mod makers because they deserve it, but also the players shouldn't have to spend $5,000 to make modded servers with a bunch of mods. I don't know, it'll be negotiable, but basically the next few videos are going to be making videos based on Ark Survival Ascended mods and modded creatures, and talking about how they'll be integrated into the board game, the card game, and also the video game. So videos will get longer. I'll try to make them a little bit more fast paced so you don't get bored. But anyway, I think that's going to be the end of the video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like if you like, dislike if you don't. Subscribe if you like it. Comment down below your thoughts for each of the card, board, and video game of Dino World. Thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble for around 25 minutes. Everyone have a blessed day as always. And of course, as always, toodaloo.